proxies, and then we'll move into approval minutes.
Yeah, we'll have to hear them vote too.
What?
We'll have to hear them vote on
Yeah.
stuff.
Does everybody in the room have their mics on? I can barely hear anything.
Nobody's saying anything for a change, Mary. We welcome you to the March 26th board meeting. As you noticed, for everybody, this is an unusual circumstances. So after we call the meeting to order, I'd like you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Tom, you have an announcement?
Just had a quick announcement. There was an accident on Lake Norwood earlier today. An individual was stepping into their kayak and it flipped over. First responders pulled the gentleman out of the water and transported him to the hospital. I tried to get an update about 30 minutes ago, and I don't have an update, but I just asked the community to keep this property owner in their prayers and the individual's family also.
Appreciate that. Thank you. We have two by phone, or two by phone. Mary Sinkus is by phone and Tia Bidwell's by phone. Steve McKee is not there, and he has no proxy tonight. Jim Abrahamson is not here, but I have his proxy at this time. So we'll go on from here. The approval of the minutes for February 27th, the Board of Directors regular meeting. I'd like a motion to approve those minutes. Jerry, second? Okay,
I second.
Second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote on that, and we'll have to ask Tia and Mary specifically. So those in favor of, okay, Tia?
Approved.
Mary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. March 12th, there was an executive session for confidential personnel issues, as well as March 17th. And March 19th, the work session meeting was canceled due to the COVID-19. We have joint advisory committee reports. As you see, there's no one else in the room, and I think Tom has an update from each of those.
Yes, I received a update from each of the committee chairs. From the Lakes Committee, as the boating season ramps up, we asked Rick Eccles to report to us how new wake boat regulations and enforcement are going. The committee told residents we would monitor this through the season, and we're open to more changes if needed. Second item, SECI disc monitoring starts the first week of April. Third, there was a lengthy discussion about new members and guests only restrictions and how this affects lakes. One member spoke about kayak fishing tournaments who had filmed TV shows encouraging people to fish here, and now that it is not possible. The R&R Rules and Regulations Committee and the board need to clarify exactly what is meant by member and guest and what outside events will be allowed going forward. Number 4, Lakes JEC has 3 openings starting in June, and we have 4 applicants to interview. Number 5, 2 subcommittees were formed, one to look at having a Lake Watch volunteers to assist rangers in identifying boating violations, and one to look at the growth in boat size and see if we need to place limits on boat size, type, and horsepower for the future. So that was the Lakes report. For the Recreation Committee, all amenities were reported in good shape. On March 7th, the meet and greet for new property owners, 52 attended from 17 states. They have 2 openings on the Recreation Committee for this coming changeover in terms. If you want, bring up the recommendation by the committee on guest pass use at the gun range, was the last point. And for the golf committee, Rounds and revenue are up year-to-date through February. Rounds were up 927. Merchandise revenue was up by 4,100. Monday through Friday, primetime play is already 78% full with groups. April through October. This report was issued prior to the COVID-19 situation. Birchdale Bridge removal to begin in late March, early April. Burns McDonnell is engineering firm working on obtaining required permits, developing removal plans, secure of contractor bids, and assisting with project management. All of the bids have already been acquired. Burns McDonnell is working on obtaining bids, but they did send us an email stating that it could be delayed as a result of the virus situation. Scottsdale Bridge, construction drawings are near completion. Permits have been attained. Expect work to be done mid-June. It is difficult to get contractors due to the small nature of the project. I'm also concerned about that project getting delayed as a result of the virus situation. With the increase of play on Brittany since the 2020 plan took effect, we are encouraging golfers to pair up on Brittany to help ensure we have enough carts. This, once again, was prior to COVID-19. Voted unanimously to extend or recommend the extension of the handicap flag program, which will go before the board tonight. And the golf committee will be going on their summer time, start time of 4:30 starting in April, assuming those meetings take place.
Any questions or comments regarding the joint advisories? If not, let's move into the financials.
The financials for February year-to-date for the POA first, and keep in mind all of this is before the virus really started kicking in and impacting the POA, and I'm going to speak about our plan, our going forward plans as a result of the virus. You'll see that revenue compared to budget is short by $97,000. Assessments are up a little bit by $34,000. Golf is down, and some refunds as the annual fee change with the 2020 plan. Compared to prior year, the number is quite a bit larger, and if you recall, in February of last year, we had the cell tower lease sale, which was approximately $1.1 million, so that explains the majority of that delta, or that difference. Operating expenses are better than budget by $327,000. $98,000 of that is from salary and wages, $65,000 from maintenance and repairs, $33,000 from software support contracts, $28,000 from equipment and tools, and $28,000 from professional services related to the stump dump. So the EBITDA compared to the budget, we're better than budget by $230,000. But compared to prior year, we're down quite a bit as a result of the $1.1 million from the cell tower sale. Moving on to the water utility, you'll see compared to budget, we are better than budget by $139,000. That's mainly due to water usage, and we're better than prior year also on that revenue. On the expense line items, $45,000 worse than budget, where the software maintenance for $32,000 kicked in, but it was budgeted for later on in the year. So that hurts a little bit in February, but it'll help us later on when it's actually budgeted. So they're better than EBITDA budget by $94,000. So if it wasn't for the virus, I'd say we have a great start to the year, but things are definitely different as a result of the virus. Any questions regarding the financials?
Mary G., any questions?
No,
Question, just a statement that February was so great. We all saw it. Everybody was out. They were enjoying it. The new privatization and the enjoyment was there. And it just, March is going to be interesting.
Okay, we had several open forum comments last time. Are there any open forum questions come in for tonight?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, the first is from Sandy Fosdick, Stonehaven Drive. With the passing of the 2020 plan, there were promises made to keep all lakes, recreation centers, pools, the gun range, and the beach for use of members and their guests only. No public access. We were told the board spent months creating the 2020 plan for the assessment increase. One would have thought that all scenarios and revenue streams would have been considered before putting the plan out to membership. Yet at the last Recreation and last Lake Committee meetings, the committee members were looking for workarounds to the promised rule change. We have just paid the first increased assessment and promises have been broken. Can you explain to the membership what the definition of a recreation guest is and when the board approved of its use, as I'm not seeing the definition in our policies? Furthermore, it is our intent to allow members to profit by instructing classes while sponsoring guests, i.e. a paddleboard instructor who is a member yet charging $140 for members and $150 for a recreational guest. Should members be allowed to make $4,400 plus using POA amenities? In my opinion, if we are keeping with the promises made under the 2020 plan and we don't have, say, 10 members who want to sign up for a paddleboard course, then there certainly is not much demand for one, and we should not compromise our morals with a workaround. The same applies to all activities on the lakes. While a member may be hurt because they can't take a class if it's not offered, I have to wonder how many more members may be hurt because they can't use the beach while it's being used for this class. Currently, our golf courses are underutilized, so we allow the public to play. That's not the case with other amenities. I've heard many members state they could not get to use the beach. Hopefully, with making it a private amenity, members will be able to access the beach. Also, the lakes at times are very busy. Many voted yes to the 2020 plan solely due to private amenities. Only one board member stood up and corrected the committee members at the Recreation and Lake Committee meetings. 2 board members sat there and said nothing. I'm hoping we hear at this board meeting this has been corrected. Promises should be promises kept, not broken. Thank you for listening. The second is from Joy Sawyer, Dillo Drive. As I was watching the most recent video of the Bella Vista City Council meeting, I noticed that Mayor Christie stated that the POA would be paying for the maintenance of the part of the connector trail that is to go through Blowing Springs. The 2020 plan clearly states that there will be no new trail maintenance for 3 years. Please explain how, then, the POA will be paying for maintenance for a portion of the connector. I'm not talking about mowing the property around the connector. I'm specifically talking about the concrete path itself. Should the path require maintenance in the next 3 years, how will it be maintained if not by the POA, as Mayor Christie has stated? As I watched the most recent Lakes Committee meeting, I was very concerned about the language being used related to guests in the 2020 plan. One committee member asked if Mr. McCash had weighed in on how the plan could be interpreted. I would like for the board to explain how we can already be talking about working around, interpreting the language, defining guest and recreational guest. You haven't even collected everyone's first month's increase, and already you are looking for a loophole. Please define for the members tonight what the difference is between a guest, a recreational guest, and a POA-sponsored guest. Are there limits to the number of guests a member may have at any given time? You stated maybe 10, but probably not 75. That is a very big difference. The 2020 plan states that lakes will be private for members and their guests only. It seems to me that these details should have been determined before you unethically began calling unimproved lot owners and asking them to vote for an increase for the improved lot owners. Additionally, I would like to thank Mr. Hover for standing up for members in recent committee meetings, and notice that Mr. Brandenburg had nothing to say in support of members throughout the discussions. Joy Thomas Sawyer.
Those are the only 2 we have. Go ahead.
So I'd like to respond for a couple of those things. On the first one, with regards to the reference to a statement made by the mayor, I can't speak to what the mayor said, but I can say this, is in today's board packet, there is an agreement that is for consideration for the board to sign, which would state that any area along the Blowing Springs connector that was previously maintained by the city or the POA will continue to be maintained. Anything new will be taken care of financially by the Trailblazers, and that's in the agreement. If there is a catastrophic event, a tornado or earthquake, a tree falls on the connector, for that 3-year period, they will take care of that. So there will be no additional dollars expended. That's, of course, assuming that the board approves the agreement that is in the board packet for today. With regards to the Lakes Committee, there was a lot of discussion, and I think it's important to say that I'm going to compare it to when the Senate or the government passes a new law. After it gets passed, then there is a lot of interpretation to that law. In the POA's website, on the Q&A section, and it was written and posted in September, it talks specifically about that for the gun range, it is for member use, but it also includes in that Q&A that it says, for example, if there is a charitable event like the Cancer Challenge, that would be allowed. And so that was stipulated all the way back in September. I know it was back in September because I personally wrote that. Ultimately, it's going to be an issue that's going to have to go in front of the Rules and Regulations Committee and then also potentially to the board. I do not view this as the board trying to shirk their commitment or the committee's trying to get a workaround. I think it's an interpretation of a rule. I think it's a very valid question. In the meeting, at the Lakes Committee meeting, I said, 10 sounds like a reasonable number of people that you can sponsor, but 75 does not sound reasonable. Where do we fall in between that? That's a large gap. So I think we just need to allow for the Rules and Regulations Committee and the board to work through this and to interpret this. There was varying opinions that were shared, and I think that after the board goes through this, that they will resolve this issue.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, update on temporary closures.
Okay.
Can we, real quick, Tom? Sandy had asked about the reference to participation guests, and that is something that we've discussed. Can you explain what happened with that statement and why it's confusing what a participation guest and a sponsored guest, those differences are?
I think she means recreation guest.
Recreation guest, yes, sorry.
Yeah, that was an issue that came up at one of the meetings, and I think that was a it was just a poor use of words. Marketing was trying to get an update out, and it was a poor use of words. The Recreation Committee is going through and trying to update the language regarding guests and trying to use much clearer language, like, members guests and members sponsored guests and POA guests and so forth. So I think that once that policy gets updated, it'll be much easier, and then we can train everybody to make sure that they use the same language. I think it was just an unintended error.
Any further?
Thank you.
Gia? Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay, so to give the board an update on everything that is occurring regarding the COVID-19. So we're staying as current as possible. A new directive was issued by the Secretary of Health for Arkansas today. And as a result of this, we're making immediate changes. Currently, where we're at right now is all of our recreation facilities are closed. That includes fitness classes and the workout facilities. Right now, what we're doing is Joan and her team are doing regular classes that we're streaming on Facebook, and most of them have over 1,000 views. So I'm really pleased with how they're doing it. They're trying to mix it up. They even did a costume event yesterday where it was 80s Day, so it was kind of fun. So they're trying to keep our community active while they're all boarded up in their house. Both of the restaurants remain open for pickup and delivery only. We're averaging between 30 and 40% of what we normally do. That's actually a lot better than I thought we would be doing. They're really hustling, so trying to make the most of it. And I really have to thank all of our property owners that are doing the delivery and pickup. They're supporting the restaurants. And what I really like is I've been told multiple times that everybody is being very generous with their tips, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of our really valuable servers. Member services. So member services remains operational, but the doors are closed, and we're doing a lot online and with calls. I got to compliment our IT department. Over the years, they've been pushing a lot of stuff where you can do almost everything online. Well, it paid off with this crisis because you can do just about everything online. Or if you can't do it, you can call in. They are averaging 240 calls a day. They're way over, so I do ask our members patience. If they're not able to get through right away, you will get a call back. The team is working very long hours trying to keep up with all the demand. Golf is going to have to convert because of the recent new directive from the Secretary of Health. And starting Saturday, we're going to have one person per cart. We're going to implement it as much as possible for tomorrow, but the directive just came out, and we have a full tee sheet. So we're going to phase it in as much as possible. Once we found out, we started blocking tee times in the morning on Friday. So we're going to try and phase it in tomorrow, and then Saturday we'll have it 100% implemented. We're encouraging property owners to bring in their own carts, and if they are so inclined, we're encouraging people to walk, because the last several days at the country club, we've run out of carts at 12:30. So if you cut that number of carts in half, because we're having to go one-on-one, we're going to run out of carts very quickly. We're also, starting Saturday, we're going to convert to 12-minute tee times. That should allow us to use less carts. And then the last thing we're going to do is people will not be able to get their cart. They'll have to wait until 20 minutes before their tee time, because we don't need them to get their cart an hour ahead of time and the cart's sitting there idly where it could be on the golf course. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible. One of the ideas that came up, a property owner suggested that we limit the number of golf courses that we have open. Unfortunately, that won't work because our cart barns are only so large, and we can only charge so many carts per golf course. Earlier today, at a senior staff meeting, we started discussing and preparing for the possibility of a shelter-in-place directive. We don't know if that's going to come, but we want to at least be prepared and think through the process, so that if it does come our way, that we're not caught off guard, that we've already thought it through. So I was really pleased that the team was thinking creatively and going through that. The water department, what they've done, now that's an essential service. What they've done is they've set up into several teams, several autonomous separate teams. So if we had to quarantine one entire team, we still keep the water flowing because we have separate teams, and we're keeping the teams away from each other, and we've actually located the teams in different buildings. They use different buildings, different vehicles, and different equipment. So one team, if we were to have to quarantine one, we can still remain operational because water absolutely is an essential service. We're also looking at doing that in other departments where it makes sense. Initial steps for our residents. 10 days ago, we made the following determinations: that all late fees would be waived for at least 30 days. It may get extended, but we're on a day-to-day basis at this point. All boat registrations, the deadline for registering your boat has been extended by 30 days. And water shutoffs for delinquent accounts will be suspended for at least 30 days. We recognize that some of our property owners may be in tough times because of the crisis. With regards to the plan, the going forward plan, revenue is a moving target because it's constantly changing. We were actually fairly busy at our golf courses, and we were thinking that that revenue was doing pretty well, but that changed today. So we're trying to prepare revenue targets, but the target is moving. The rules and regulations, the rules that we are living under are changing, and we don't know the end date. We don't know when it's going to be over, so it's really hard. With that being said, the team pulled together, and we have developed a plan where we'll be able to carve $370,000 out of our budget for the 2020 plan, for the 2020 budget, if we need that much. It's quite possible we will need all of that. But keep in mind, anytime you do those that level of cuts, you're going to notice it. We're cutting out some capital projects, we're cutting out repairs and so forth. You end up noticing that. Unfortunately, as a result of having to close the recreation department and at least partially close F&B, we had to lay off 60 of our very hard-working employees. We hope that this crisis passes and that we'll be able to get them rehired in the near term. Very proud of the team. We have been implementing changes on a regular basis, and they've been reacting very quickly to a very changing environment. We found out about the directive today from the Secretary of Health, and we had a plan developed and implemented within an hour on what we would do for golf. So we're really trying as best as we can to react to this changing environment. And once again, I encourage all our residents to use our restaurants. Come you order in advance, you come pick it up, they'll bring it out to your car on the curb, and please take care of our servers because they're very hardworking.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to thank
Tom?
Go ahead.
Yes, Mary.
Go ahead, Mary.
Tom, it's Mary. I'd just like to clarify something. There are some people saying that all of the amenities are closed. Well, obviously, you just talked about several of them that are still open, as well as lakes and parks, the beach, when it's time to open it. Well, I'm guessing on that, maybe not. At any rate, all of the amenities are not closed. Those that can maintain some kind of service, like the restaurants and golf, are obviously doing that. Joan's doing a heck of a job with her video classes from recreation. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And the trails are still open. That was in the directive that came out from the Secretary of Health today, that the trails are still open. They're just encouraging people to not congregate in groups of 10 or more. You'll notice in today's meeting, everybody in this room, we counted it up and we made sure that there was no more than 10 people. There's actually only 9 people here, I think, if I'm correct. And we just wanted to make sure that we hit that number, and we tried to maintain as much distance as possible, and that's on the trails too, and everywhere else. So we're trying but Mary is 100%. We're trying to keep as many amenities are open, but also be cognizant of our members' health.
Correct. I also want to thank management because the decisions in the last 2 weeks have been almost hour to hour. And it can turn completely around. You think you have it figured out, and an hour later you can't do what you just said you're going to do. So they've done an excellent job in pulling through and making changes for us so we can have as many activities as possible. So any other comments?
Well, kudos also to them for coming up with $370,000 worth of potential savings from off the budget.
Yeah. And I think I phrased that wrong when I said potential. What I mean is, if we need to, we can cut $370,000 out of the budget. If that is not needed because our revenue is not hit as much, and it depends upon when we reopen, then we could reduce that amount. So I don't want to say potential as in, potential of 370, but it will turn into 200. That's not what I meant. Is we have the potential to ramp it all the way up to 370 if it's required. But keep in mind that those savings will not necessarily take place in these months. It's over the entire year. Okay.
Mary? Okay. Okay, moving along, you will see number 10 through 22 or 21 are different reviews of motions, et cetera. So we're going to handle that just a little bit differently tonight. I'm going to read the motion. I'm going to state very briefly what it is, ask for a second, and then ask for any discussion and move as long as best we can. So I think that'll save us considerable time and concerns. The first one is a Lake Committee nomination. The Lakes Committee unanimously nominated Paul Bickford and Grace Turley for another 3-year term. And because they nominate him, they come to the board, and the board gives final approval for both. But they're separate motions. So the first motion would be, I approve and recommend nomination for Lakes Joint Committee, Advisory Committee of Paul Bickford for another 3-year term. Do we have a second? Okay, David? Any discussion on that one? All those in favor? I have 2 votes. Mary?
Yes.
Tia?
Yes.
Okay. The second motion is I approve the recommendation, a nomination of Lakes Joint Advisory Committee of Grace Turley for another 3-year term. Do I have a second on that? Jerry? Second on that? Any discussion on that one? If not, a vote on that one for all those in favor? I have 2 votes. Mary?
Yes.
Tia?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is the continuation of the handicap flag program brought up by the Golf Committee. In their March meeting, the Golf Committee recommended a continuation of the handicap flag program indefinitely, and it was very well received by the people using it, handicap as well as age-related, and they've made provisions for both, and everybody seems to think that's a good program, and it's worked very well for us, and it allowed golfers to maintain their golf, whereas they may have had to quit otherwise. So the motion is to approve the the recommended nomination of the Joint Advisory Golf Committee to continue the handicap flag program indefinitely. A second?
Second.
David Watchell? Any discussion? And we will continue both parts, age as well as handicap by the state. Okay, those wishing to support and vote on that at this time? I have 2. Tia?
100% yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the maintenance agreement with the Medfield Trail, referred to as Blowing Spring Connector and the Greenway. The revision here was done at the request of the board members. They asked for a couple of changes. Those changes were made, and therefore the motion is to approve the proposed maintenance agreement for the Medfield Trail, also referred to as Blowing Spring Connector and the Greenway. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, David, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, they have identified the items that we asked to change, and we will make those changes. Okay. At this time, if you would vote, please, on the motion. All those in favor? Tia?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, there's 1 opposed. Okay. The next item is the wake boat, and that's number 13. Wake boat proposal, this is the second reading. And it's consistent with the recommendation developed by the Lakes Committee. The Rules and the Regulations Committee developed the below regulations. These regulations approved were incorporated into the boating regulations. Okay, the motion is, I make a motion to amend the boating regulation to incorporate the language developed by the regulation of wake boats. This is the second reading. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, David? Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Those wishing in a positive manner or a yes to the wake boat resolution. I have 2. Mary?
No.
Tia?
Yes.
Okay, I thank you on that one. Okay. Policy 1.02 revised, the first reading. The Rules and Regs Committee recommend the attached changes to the Policy 1.02 establishing, changing, and rescinding governing documents. And the motion is to approve the Rules and Regulation Committee recommendation change to the Policy 1.02 as noted in the attached document. This is the first of 2 required readings. A second. David?
Normally, this would go through the Rules and Regulations Committee, but that committee meeting had to be canceled. So to the best of the committee members' ability, we did it via email. So it was a little bit unusual. Normally, we would do it, all this work in a committee setting, but that was not possible because of the crisis situation at this time. Jerry did quite a bit of work, so I'd say he was the author of many of these changes, updates.
Appreciate that. Okay, any discussion? If not, I ask for a vote on the motion to recommend the changes to the policy 1.02 as noted in the attached document, the first of two readings. Positive vote? Tia?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda would be 14, Policy 1.305 revision. It's the first reading. The Rules and Regs Committee recommend the attached changes to Policy 1.3.5, 1.03.5, Rules and Regs Committee. The motion to approve the Rules and Regs Committee recommended policy change 1.03.5 is noted in the attached. This is a first of two readings. Can I have a second to this motion? David?
Ruth, for
Go ahead, Mary.
people watching, you want to just sort of tell us what the 1.03.5 regards?
Do you want to hit that, Doug?
1.03.5 is the Rules and Regulations Committee. So policies having to do with the Rules and Regs Committee.
Okay.
And it's also stated that the committee will elect the chairperson by majority vote. In the event of a tie, the board chair shall decide the casting vote, or cast the deciding vote, I think it says so. Shall cast the deciding vote. Thank you, thank you. Okay, any questions or discussion on that? If not, all those in favor of changing the motion, policy 1.03.5? Two here. Mary?
Yes.
Tia?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is policy 1.04 revision. It's the first reading of two, and it's rules regs attached, and this is the removal of the Community Involvement Committee from the advisory positions. And so the motion is to recommend the change of policy 1.04 as noted in the attachment and being the first of two. Can I have a second on this? David?
Second.
Okay, Mary, thank you. Do we have any discussion on this? It's simply the removal of the community involvement, and that was decided pretty much by the committee themselves that that was the best move in that situation, so. Okay, could I have any discussion? If not, can I
I think
have,
Tom went through it, I don't know if it was the last board meeting, but some of the things that committee had done, and thanked all the members over the 3 years that it was in existence. So I'm not going to go there again.
you
Well,
just,
no,
you just stole my thunder, go ahead.
yeah, they, this committee championed the coat drive, which has proved to be very successful, and the Fireflies and Tailgates events. Also, years ago, when they were the Young Residents Committee, before they changed their name, they championed updating our playgrounds, and they championed the beach. So many thanks to the hard work from these committee members.
And they have been very successful in both of the projects, the coat drive as well as the Fireflies will be carried on by staff members.
Correct.
Okay? Can I ask for a
And
vote?
the reason it's being disbanded is we couldn't get any members.
This is correct.
And
anymore.
I think that's why the committee felt it was time to dissolve.
Yeah, and some of the committee members from that committee have put in applications to transfer over to other committees.
Okay. And they were given first choice on that if they chose to.
We've given,
Opportunity-
yeah.
to-
yeah,
Opportunity to
absolutely.
transfer over if they chose to, so. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, can I ask for a positive vote on the motion to remove the Community Involvement Committee from the advisories? I have two. Tia?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Okay. The next item up is private carts, policy 2.03 revision. Attached, it's the private cart, the registration will be at the membership services and also must have a active activity card is what I'm trying to say. And those seem to be the two changes. So the motion is to approve the Rules and Regulation Committee recommended changes to policy 2.03 as noted in the attached document. This is the first of two required readings. Discussion, or I need a second? Second. Jerry Barron, second, okay. Discussion.
Yes, I have a question. On requirements for registration 5.2, it says hold a current activity or photo ID card or as recommended by management. There's got to be a reason why that was added, or is that being deleted, or as recommended by management? I just realized it's in red.
It's on page 115.
Jerry, I
So
think that was...
sorry, that's
that
being
was,
deleted.
It's not mine. It's not mine.
115.
I thought that was yours.
How about after the word card, we strike everything from there on because everybody's looking at each other going, where did this come from?
Okay. Tia, would you like to make a motion to amend it right here?
Approve as amended.
Yes, I make a motion to amend and remove the words or as recommended by management.
I will second that.
Okay. Discussion on that. It will simply read, hold a current activity or photo ID card. No discussion? Okay, let's call a vote for the amended.
Amendment.
Amendment.
Amended?
No, the amendment.
Amendment
And
itself.
then you vote
And then I
on...
go back and do the other.
Yes.
Okay. Let's call for a positive vote or a vote. All those saying yes on the amended amendment to the policy. Good God, folks.
The motion, amendment to the motion.
I knew this was going to have a problem before it got done with
You know,
this.
you
Okay.
got to check in on them.
Okay, Tia,
Yes.
don't laugh at me, it's not kind. Mary,
Yes.
thank you, I appreciate that. Now, we will go to vote on the amendment itself, or the motion itself, policy 2.03 as attached.
We're going to
as
vote on the
amended
amended...
policy.
Yes.
All those in
Did the
favor?
rest of the boardroom vote on the amendment?
Who seconded that?
Who seconded? Did Jerry Barron second that?
Jerry
Start with, yeah.
Barron seconded, okay.
And discussion was held.
Okay.
All those in favor? One more time.
4, 6.
Mary?
Yes.
Tia?
Yes.
Okay, that just shows how human I am tonight, so life is like that. The next one, boat registration and mooring lease agreements. Policy 2.04 revision, it's the first reading of two. The motion is to approve the Rules and Regs Committee recommended changes to policy 2.04 as noted in the attached. This is the first reading. I think as I looked through it, it was basically to put things in perspective with the Arkansas state boat regulations and pull them in line with everybody else. Is that fairly?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of research on Arkansas state boat regulations, and so I use the exact wording of what the certificate is called, and then Jerry made the changes where we added activity card and a couple other things that for clarification.
Okay. Can I have a second on that? Jerry Barron, thank you. Okay, discussion? Okay, if no discussion, I ask for a vote on the approval of Rules and Regulation Committee recommendation change to policy 2.04 as noted on the attached amendment. This is the first of two readings. Mary?
Yes.
Tia?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is policy 2.05 revision. It's the first reading of two. It's called common property hunting. And the motion is to approve the Rules and Regulation Committee recommendation change to policy 2.05 as noted in the attached. And my understanding is that since we no longer have the ARCMO land, that is no longer viable.
Correct. We can no longer allow,
People to vote, or people
To
to hunt
hunt
on somebody's
on-
land that's not ours.
correct.
Okay. Is that pretty well sum it up? May I ask for a second?
Second.
Okay, David Watson. Any discussion on that? Okay, if not, all those supporting the recommendation to change policy 2.05, first of two readings. Tia?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Okay. The next policy is 3.08, and we're down to number 20, I think, pretty close to that. The rules and regulation recommend the following of temporary parking of vehicles. The motion is to approve the Rules and Regulation Committee recommendation change to policy 3.08 as noted on the attached. This is the first of two. My understanding is that the rules we're trying to change is it's okay to park overnight if you're involved in a fishing situation that your boat and trailer need to be there overnight. Otherwise, it is not. Does that pretty well sum it up?
Yeah, and just cleaning up a couple small things. It's not membership services, it's member services.
It's member
Little
services.
things like that.
Okay. Can I have a second on that? Jerry Barron?
Second.
Discussion. If not, I ask for a vote on the Rules and Regulation Committee recommendation change to policy 3.08 as noted in the attached documents. First of two readings. Two. Mary?
Yes.
Tia?
Yes.
Okay, and I have one more, which would be number 21. Bylaws, Article 8, first reading. The Rules and Regulation Committee recommend the attached changes to the Bylaws, Article 8 committees. The motion is to approve the Rules and Regulation Committee recommended changes to the Bylaws, Article 8, as noted in the attached document. This is the first of two readings. It removes community involvement from the advisory committee status. And that's the only change I see. Can I ask for a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Okay, and that removes it from the bylaws as far as policy as well. Can I ask for a vote on policy bylaws, Articles 8 and noted in the attached document? First of two readings.
All in favor?
All in favor? Tia?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Okay, I understand those were fast, furious through them, and some errors cleaned up on my part. We will be reading most of those again next month as the second reading on each of those. So, any comments at this time? Jerry?
I have a question about the super committee.
One
Go
second,
ahead.
Tia.
Go ahead, go ahead.
1 second, Tia. Jerry Holbrook, go ahead. Jerry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for next meeting, we'll probably have 20 of them.
20 more of them? Okay, thank you. I can hardly wait for that day. Tia, I hope yours doesn't add up to 30 or 40, but go ahead.
I don't know, probably just one, but I probably agree with all 20 Jerry's bringing. But the super committee, we had, in our last meeting, we had voted that we needed to disband the community involvement and the super committee. Is there, I have not found it. Is it referenced somewhere that we need to bring up?
It was an ad hoc committee, is that correct? It was an ad hoc committee, so therefore was not in the bylaws or the policy.
Got it, thank you.
Okay? Okay, if nothing further, the announcements, and these announcements are going to be tentative until we know more about what's going to happen in the next month. The general meeting is scheduled for April 9th. And I've lost it. Oh, there it is. April 9th at 4:30. That is a closed meeting. Coffee and questions for April 14th has been canceled, so there'll be no coffee and questions at the country club. The work session is for April 16th at 9 o'clock. Watch for a change in that. That can be canceled at further notice. The Board of Directors' regular session will be Thursday, April 23rd at 6 o'clock here in the boardroom. And unless we're off of the 10 people, it will probably be done much the same as we're doing now.
All depends upon the directive from the governor and the Secretary of Health in the coming weeks.
And we are at the mercy of everybody else, whatever they tell us we need to follow. So on behalf of everybody sitting here, I want to thank each and every one of you that are doing your part to make everybody safe. Please check on your elderly neighbors. Check on people who you don't normally check on. It's the kind thing to do at this time and needed. So other than that, I appreciate, and we stand adjourned.